Yeah, you gotta just, the same thing like stocks. You just gotta choose your entries, choose your pain points, know the volatility. Look at the historical return histogram. Do a simple, you guys wanna see how to do that? Let's do it. Let's go fart coin, okay? Type fart in the terminal. I'm gonna zoom into the terminal so you see this. See that? Oh, look at that. I gotta take a photo of this. That is not, that should sort of look a little different. I personally don't like these little guys up here. I never use this feature. Okay. So anyway, you type fart and fartcoin pops up. You can hit enter at this point, or you can hit tab. I just hit tab, and you want the currency, and you do HP for historical prices. We may not have this for crypto. Oh, it's killing me. Well, let's pick a similarly crazy stock. Let's do Palantir. And then you do HP, and you get this listing. So we'll do that. We'll make sure that crypto has this. And we just hit download. And I want Excel, but for some of you programmers, you might want JSON, but let's just do Excel. All right, here's the Excel. By the way, Yahoo Finance will not let you do this for free, which is crazy. So here's the data. And here's the simple, you do 1 day change. Okay. And we just go down for the last year, it looks like. It's the default. Okay. And then we're just going to do mean. In Excel, it's average. Okay. Average. There's 4 key ones you got to look at. Average, standard deviation, min, and max. These are the 4 that I really like. Did they change standard deviation? They have population standard deviation and sample standard deviation. I'm going to use dot sample. And you can see that the standard deviation is 4%. So naively, you would say I should be able to survive a 3 sigma attack. So 3 sigma, does anybody know what percentage 3 sigma occurrences are? You guys should know. .73. 1 sigma is 68%. 2 sigma is 95%. 3 sigma is 99.73. Okay? So you figure you should survive a 3 sigma event. Now, let's sort of see what the minimum maximum here is. I know, almost hard to believe that Palantir, the worst day for Palantir in the last year was down 15. And the best day was up 24. So you can already see that this isn't a normal distribution. You know, clearly not quite normal. So another way you could sort of do it is say, well, let's just take the worst day ever and double it. You know, that's a pretty naive way to do it. But let's say I could see this stock go down 30%. You know, that's possible. How many? We should also do sample size here. $248 occurrences. So if you multiply that by 99.73, you know, you should expect roughly 1 2/3 of one event happening in that 3 sigma range, and that's sort of what happened. So it wasn't too far off from normal distribution, actually. So in any event, around 20 million, we call. So in any event, you do this, and you basically say, okay, whether it's 3 sigma or the worst event, or the worst event times 2, this can guide your position size, okay? So now you say, okay, max loss for me might be 5%. I cannot lose more than 5% of my portfolio. But your max loss might be higher. Might be, I'm okay losing 15% of my portfolio in one stock. Well, that's a lot. Well, if this is the most it can go down, say 30% in one day, that, you know, the daily thing matters because you want to stop yourself out. So it also, by the way, if you're short this, you would use this max, which was a lot higher, up 24%. It's like theoretically it'd be possible for Palantir maybe to go up as much as 50% one day. Okay, so we're solving for what? For position size. And then we're really solving for position loss in a way. So we know what the max loss is, which is, in this case, down 30%. So how do we do the math here to figure out, well, what position when down 30% would result in a 15% loss to my portfolio? Well, there's a few ways to do this, but does anybody have a good idea? Well, you could do this really poorly. You could say, okay, well, if I had 100% position, maybe that would work, but the smarter way to do it is divide, right? So it's 50% position. So if I have 50% position at a 30% position loss, that's kind of the most I should have on Palantir. And that's you know, I want you to stop thinking about multiple times leverage or something like that. You know, I'd rather you think about it as this is the position size, like that's it. It's not about, you know, necessarily leverage. So this, a 50% position, according to your survival metric, right, which is 15%, a 50% position could survive or bear, you know, it's at the periphery, it's at the boundary of surviving at a 30% loss. And your math says 30% loss is kind of the worst possible thing you can expect in a single day. But let's say you say, I'm happy to have 50% loss. Well, in that case, you could actually have a leveraged position. You can have a 1.7x your whole portfolio in this stock and still sort of live to see another day. You have 95%, you can be 3x levered. So it's not that leverage is bad, it's just that you really have to understand it. And the problem is, as you can see, these assumptions are pretty much not, I was actually talking to my girlfriend about this last night, they're not always grounded in reality, because just because the observance, you know, the things you've observed have a certain distribution doesn't mean the next observation won't be out of whack, right? There's the famous turkey example where the turkey says every day the farmer comes in and feeds us. The next time the farmer comes in, he's going to feed us, but the next day is Thanksgiving. The farmer's not coming in to feed him. The farmer's coming in to do the opposite. So, you know, you have to be pretty careful about that. One way you can look at it is you look at the actual limits and the bounds of what are the company's assets themselves. Are they diversified? Are they, you know, are they a company with a single asset? And that could actually be a lot more informative than, say, VAR or whatever. You know, all these things are sort of the same metric. We are functionally using VAR when you you know, they're all sort of ultimately they're all a function of the same thing. Which is the prior experiences. And the prior experiences don't really tell you too much. So let's say we look at a stock that's a lot. Let's do this for Johnson & Johnson. It's not very volatile, is it? And it's a pretty diversified business. Can we think of an even more diversified business? Procter & Gamble. This is like almost like an indestructible business, right? And I'm just going to take the values from this and paste them over. I wonder if that'll work. Let's see if that'll work. Yeah, it worked. Okay. Very different picture, right? Very different picture. The mean return on Procter & Gamble is literally 0% per day. The standard deviation is 1.1%. Massively different, right? What was it for the max for Palantir was what? 24%. The downside was what? -13 or -15. The standard deviation was what? Standard deviation. Positive 4.4, I think. And the average was something like 0.5% or something. Look at how different those are. Totally different complexions. You also have to account for, is the business I'm trading levered itself? Because if they're levered and you're levering it, then it's double exponential leverage in a way. Okay, so here you can kind of reason that your maximum one-day loss for Procter, really can't be more than 10%. It seems extremely unlikely it'd be more than 10%. You can go backwards in time and look, but if you say that, you're guarding against a 10% position, you could have a 5x levered position in your portfolio and live to tell another day. And the only way you'd really be nicked hard is if, you basically had a flash crash or some other like nuclear bomb or something crazy happening. That's really the only risk you're bearing. Now, is it smart to go take a 5x leverage position? No, of course not. But the point is, if you're going to trade Procter & Gamble, you should roughly have, here's the best way to look at it. You should roughly have a 4x position. If you're going to trade Palantir, it should be 1/4 of the position as you would for a Procter. So that's kind of the way sort of sized up. So if you have 1,000 shares of Procter & Gamble, maybe you have 250 shares of Palantir. But if you have 1,000 shares or $1,000 of each, I should say, or $1 million of each, you basically are 4x overexposed to Palantir because it just swings so much. Now maybe you want that, but just know what you're getting, if that makes sense. Yeah, this is just looking at variance. Sometimes, the historical return histogram function, HRH, coming soon to Godel. VAR is definitely what one of the chat members mentioned, VAR, value at risk. There's a lot of techniques, but I would call it risk management. Risk management is the word. Yeah, I think you just, some companies have intrinsic diversification. J&J, Berkshire, Procter, etc. Some companies don't. Even Microsoft, really, really diverse, right? Sharp is a whole other metric typically designed for funds. You can use Sharp on stocks, but probably not the best way to do it. Kelly is a whole other can of worms. Yeah, you have to make your own assumptions on what you think the upper and lower bounds of risk are. So I highly recommend you do it. In fact, if you have a system like I have where you list every stock somewhere, whether it's this or it's in biotech, you can even put like on the side somewhere Like, what is my upper bound or lower bound of risk? You know, and for NVIDIA, it's like really high risk. Whereas for Microsoft, it's a lot lower because NVIDIA has one product. It's an awesome product, but it's one product. And if something goes wrong where people don't want that product anymore, well, Microsoft can survive if people don't want Azure anymore. They used to not have Azure at all. You know, Google is largely one product. Meta is funny. They sort of have 3 or 4 products, but functionally the revenue comes from one product. So you have to make the call. What does that mean? How do I manage that? And you can always just err on the side of caution.